Yes, it is Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gachanja and we're coming to you from the Grammar Suite here in Nairobi. Now, just the other day, I asked somebody what they think dyslexia is, and it was interesting. Their first reaction was, is that condition where people read things backwards? Well, that is one of the myths we'll be busting in today's episode, and also we shall endeavor to understand this learning disability that affects 1 in every 5 people. But before we get to it, here now is a fact of the matter. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability where those with this condition have trouble reading accurately and fluently. They may also have trouble with reading comprehension, spelling, and writing. Children have a 50% chance of having dyslexia if one parent has it and a 100% chance if both parents have it. Though dyslexia impacts learning, it's not a problem of intelligence or due to a mental disorder. One can live a perfectly normal life with treatment, but this condition can't be cured. Some of the world-famous and successful people who are or were dyslexic include Richard Branson, Albert Einstein, Whoopi Goldberg, former President George W. Bush, and Steven Spielberg.
I've had struggles all my life that made me feel very dumb, and also in Form 1, when I joined Form 1, I remember first time my composition was really bad. So the teacher took my composition and said, Kendi Kamanja, beauty with no brains, listen to what she writes. And then he read my composition out loud in class, putting all my spelling mistakes on the board. Of course, my classmates really laughed at me. And that, of course, crushed my self-esteem. And you can imagine after that, I was very dimmed. And then that's why I managed to get a B minus, and I joined Kenya School of Monetary Studies to do a diploma in banking. So I managed to get a second upper in BCom Finance at University of Nairobi, and I started looking for a job. Now I got 3 job interviews, all in banks, but I never got past the oral interview. And so, because again of my challenges, the auditory processing, so sometimes you will say a word, but it doesn't come to me as you said it. So I might mistake it for another word. So that what gives me issues with processing that information. So I used to debate on where I can get help. And remember, it's not something I had shared with anyone. Until I found out last year that what I have is called dyslexia. That's when now all my fears evaporated. Now I started living my life. The problem right now is even the teachers who are handling these children don't know what is dyslexia. So when you don't know, you still mislabel this child as being lazy or not working hard enough, because these kids, some of them are so articulate, they sound so intelligent, but ask them to put what they're telling you on paper, you wonder, is this the same person who is writing like this and talking like that? So if that is tackled early, then if it's mild, it can be done away with. But if even the severe ones are not so, the severity can be reduced, yes.
So let's take time to understand what dyslexia means. It is a learning disorder, but beyond that, to many, it is not known. So to help us do that, definitely with me, Dr. John Ouma Onala. He is a consultant in developmental and learning disability, and Lena Kivuva, who is a caregiver to a 9-year-old daughter who has dyslexia. Thank you for joining me. Now, Daktari, what exactly causes dyslexia?
Dyslexia tend to run in families. So you find a big number of children born with dyslexia, and you can trace a few family members with the condition. That means that it can be inherited. The other thing is that we have quite a number of environmental factors that we need to consider. Things like premature, low birth weight, maternal emotional condition, if maybe the child's mother was unwell, was going through emotional challenges. Those can be factors. But we have other factors like faulty learning in early years. Let's say you take your child to a school and the school keeps changing teachers. We get teacher A, then we get teacher B, we get teacher C, and they all come in with different teaching methods. And that confuses the child. Then the child will show symptoms of dyslexia because of faulty learning. But some of those symptoms might disappear with intervention as the child moves on.
Okay, now Lena, for you, your child is 9 years old.
Yes.
When was she diagnosed with dyslexia?
Sometime last year, she was about 8 years old. And we noticed that she couldn't read like bigger words, like 5-lettered words, some 4-lettered words. Earlier when she went to school and they are getting to learn sounds, it was easy and you couldn't pick it. And then later you're trying to read a storybook, you can tell she's mastered some words and she can skip some lines. And then when it comes to bigger words, she can even read a word that is not there. And you're wondering, where did you pick that from? Yeah. And at some point, you'll see they'll also like rub their eyes. They'll want a bathroom break when they're reading. They'll not want to read for long. And initially we thought, you tend to think the child is lazy or they don't want just to concentrate and read. Also concentration is poor. And then I came across a documentary on dyslexia. And that also on a magazine on dyslexia. And that's when we got to know this could be it.
Now, there's some just from the get-go, they can tell from something is off when they join school. So what makes the difference? Is it the severity of the same, or is it the exposure to school? What makes the difference?
Severity can be a factor. Some children will be picked from day one. They join school, they have speech, but they keep mixing words. So they're telling a story and the story is jumbled up. They take long to learn their basic sounds. So when the teacher starts saying A for apple, B for ball, they wonder why A would be apple. And B, what's the connection between B and ball? So they start struggling from the word go. In mild cases, they might proceed on with their learning until learning tasks increases. So when words become more complex as they grow up. But again, looking into different types of dyslexia. So children with phonological dyslexia, that's a type of dyslexia that ordinarily affect the ability to learn sounds, will struggle from day one in school. And then we have a type of dyslexia called orthographic dyslexia, where they'll only struggle with writing and then spelling. And so they'll not be picked from early years because when you're talking to them, they understand everything. You talk of A for apple, they understand all that. And that's what is taught in kindergarten. So they'll make good progress up to maybe grade 4 or even grade 5. And that's when they start struggling significantly, when now spelling rules start coming in, reading fluency become an issue, and then you realize that they're not making progress.
In your case,
yes.
Do you have dyslexia in any of the families?
In our family, no. Both sides, no. But I had a very difficult pregnancy all through. And so for us, we tend to think that would have been it. Yeah, because even after birth, we stayed in hospital for some time. Then she had also some medical issues.
Now, at what point do you think, if somebody is actually keen enough, they would catch it to enable early intervention?
All children born at risk need to undergo early intervention, whether there's a problem or no problem, to help them pick up from early years. And if your instinct tells you that your child is delayed, don't listen to what people tell you that no, your child is different. Start early intervention. But then when they're joining school, and then the teacher tells you your child cannot concentrate in class, your child keeps shifting attention from one activity to the other one, keep giving excuses, no, I want to go to the washroom, I have stomachache, my head is aching. For you to be diagnosed with dyslexia, first of all, means that you have average, above average general intelligence.
Yes.
So they're intelligent, So they'll come up with lots of excuses. You need to start seeking for help, find out why.
When you think about her developmental stages and her milestones, is there a point where you probably thought milestones are different for every child? Yeye hajafika hapo. Do you think maybe you missed some of those?
I think so. One, she was dealing with another health issue when she was small. And so we kind of felt we are concentrating more on her health improvement more than even education. We thought again, maybe she missed a bit of school, because she also missed a bit of school.
Okay.
So we need to intervene there. We tried the intervention, getting extra, like a teacher for extra few hours to get her to reading. I would read with her, the dad would read. We read with her like every day. And we saw after 1 year, there's not much of anything changing. Then that's when we thought there's something. Yeah.
Okay, now, Daktari, you can't blame her because health comes first.
Sure.
But then again, dyslexia has at times been misdiagnosed to be something else, because some of the symptoms mimic other neurological disorders like autism. How can you tell the difference, especially for a layman?
Right. Dyslexia is very specific. That's why we call it specific learning difficulties. If it comes to something like autism, you need occupational therapy, you need speech therapy, you need social skills training. So you find that intervention becomes even wider. But for dyslexia, it's very specific, and we also know that the child has average to above average general intelligence. So it's easier to work with a person with dyslexia than most of these other neurodevelopmental conditions.
Okay, now Lena, you touched on the fact that your daughter had issues with concentration.
Yes.
Now, attention deficit hyperactive disorder is something that's also associated with dyslexia. Did that not trigger anything, or you just thought they're just being a child?
Initially, we thought they're just being a child. And again, she's very confident. So being very confident kind of like masks everything else, every other weakness. She comes, she'll meet you straight on your face, even the teachers. And she was so confident. Even when she's trying to read, she'll even come with a book and try and teach everybody else. So for you to pick that from such a child, until now, like you were saying, you know, when they get to like grade 4 and they're doing bigger words, they're writing composition. That was hard. And especially Swahili Insha, that was hard. So that's when now you start picking that. And also herself, she will tell you, she can notice the other people in class can read well. So how come I can't read such big words?
So Lena is saying her daughter is actually very intelligent and good with technical stuff. And Daktari actually said these children are above average. They're actually very intelligent, but they need intervention and support for them to live a full life. We talk more about the stigma and the challenges of that in society right after this break.
Global diaper brand Molfix is now in Kenya. Please welcome the Molfix Band.
Molfix, so absorbent. Playtime is much more fun than ever. Come on, it's time for playing. Molfix is comfy and we love it.
Molfix, with its double absorbent system, absorbs the liquid immediately and traps the liquid in. Also, with its elastic side bands, Molfix offers freedom of movement. You should also try Molfix.
Maritime Tips, brought to you by Kenya Maritime Authority. Precautions for vessel and boat owners, operators, coxswains and passengers. Personal hygiene. Practice frequent hand hygiene, coughing and sneezing etiquette. clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces on board the boats and vessels such as steering wheel, safety or guardrails and seats. Crew members, coxswains and passengers to regularly disinfect life jackets, practice frequent hand washing with soap, wear a mask on board a boat or vessel. Boat owners and operators to comply with government directives on movement restrictions within counties. Kenya Maritime Authority for safe and efficient water transport.
Japo njia bora zaidi ya kuhakikisha usafi wa mikono ni kutumia maji na sabuni, katika baadhi ya sehemu wameweka mchanganyiko huu maalum wa kutoa uchafu maarufu sanitizer, na tunahimizwa kila tunapotumia tuhakikishe kwamba sehemu zote za mkono zimeupata mchanganyiko huo kwa kufanya hivi kwa takriban sekunde 20 hivi, na tuhimizane wenyewe kwa wenyewe kufanya usafi, manake wapo mwenzako hatafanya usafi basi anakutia wewe hatarini.
This is NTV.
Hujambo mtazamaji, natumai umekuwa na siku njema na siku yako pia bado inaendelea tu vyema mtazamaji. Hizi ni baadhi ya taarifa tunazo kuandalia kwenye NTV jioni. Watu 4 wafariki na 23 hawajulikani waliko kufuatia mafuriko Elgeyo Marakwet.
All those who break the curfew rules will be assumed to have been in contact with suspected cases and hence will be quarantined for a period of 14 days.
Watu walioambukizwa homa ya corona hapa Kenya wafika 270 huku 7 zaidi wakipona.
And we've noticed that almost every estate in this county does have a case. And the situation in Mombasa is not any better.
Serikali yaorodhesha mitaa yenye corona Mombasa huku ikianza kupima umma bandarini. Na je, unajua kina Ngop huko Nyandarua wameishi na corona tangu miaka ya 80? Na mtazamaji, tutakueleza ni vipi, lakini usikose NTV jioni kwa taarifa hizi na zingine.
The young ones are at home, and we know how that can go. Don't worry, we've got you.
A lesson will be learned.
-3 times -4.
They can have fun as they learn on NTV.
What does 0 mean? It's just a number that means nothing.
This is so much fun!
It's our secret. NTV, turning on your world.
Why is food security so important now, and why does it matter for smallholder farmers? Well, smallholder farmers comprise 70% of Kenya's population. They are the backbone and have to be at the center of any intervention that is looking at food security. But we really need to look at the entire food value chain if we're going to make sure that food security is secured for all Kenyans. Join me on Wednesday at the Leadership Forum with NTV as we discuss this important question of food security in a time of COVID-19.
Nation Leadership Forum, engaging society, impacting the nation.
Thank you for staying with Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and the conversation today is dyslexia. Now, a lot of information coming out of this conversation I'm having with Lena, who is a caregiver to a 9-year-old daughter with dyslexia, and Dr. Onala, who is a specialist in the same. And Dr. before we went to break, we emphasized on the fact that these children are gifted, they are above average, and they do many other things, but have a problem with their reading especially and making up words. Now, what is the problem with the brain in this case if you're saying these children are good at this, but they are actually struggling with this?
Dyslexia is a neurodevelopmental challenge. That means that they process information in a slightly different way. They'll see certain details that you can't see. They'll come up with a lot of creative ideas and information and visual hands-on activities that you can't imagine they can do that. If you look at the business world, most people who are very successful in business, if you look at great engineers and doctors, a big number of them have dyslexia. Yes. And one thing about people with dyslexia is that they don't give up. Yeah, they'll keep trying until we usually say that they're experienced with failure. Okay. Then they get it right.
Which is a very good attitude in life.
Yes, and so they succeed. They end up succeeding. Sometimes they look at words and letters and numbers and they seem to be flying around.
Okay. Like literally?
Yeah, literally flying.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to write cat and then you see T running to the other side and A running to the other side, and so it becomes stuck. Wow. Yeah, and then like yesterday I was looking at a child's work, and he wrote TOX, and then I asked him, what did you write? Then he said, fox. So his F was facing the other way, you know. Yeah. Yeah, and then he would write bog instead of dog.
For you, Lena, you say she's very good with techie stuff. She wants to play with the iPad and all that. What other things have you seen that now her strengths are in?
She's very creative. She can pick a balloon and design a dress for a doll, you know, and who thinks a balloon can? And she dresses the doll, you know, or picks things, papers, foil paper, and makes things out of it from nowhere. You know, she comes cuts, and I was like, wow, that's gifting. Something else is that she picks flags, and she can tell you that's this country. I don't even know myself. That one is this one. Yes. And she will not. The thing is that I think once they master something, some of them, like what I've seen with my daughter, sticks.
Not everyone has it as easy as Lena's daughter, right? There's some that really struggle through class, and that hits on them, on their self-esteem, and that now, of course, with the teachers, they also give up on them.
Yeah. One thing that happens sometimes when I interview teachers to get background information about the child is that they'll tell me this child is a slow learner. You've probably heard of that term, yeah. Slow learner.
Yeah. All school is not for them.
Yes, yeah. It's not working hard. It's a lazy child. So before the teacher gets to figure out the child's learning style, the teacher gets frustrated. So the child is frustrated, the teacher is frustrated. So you tell the child, try hard, but the child is trying the hardest. So the teacher needs help to understand that this child is putting in his effort. Maybe the teaching method is not matching the child's learning style. Use multisensory learning strategies, project-based learning will help them. Use short video clips or use demonstration. A big number of people with dyslexia, actually majority of them, end up having very low self-esteem. So some of them will drop out of school, they feel they can't make it in life. But when you find them in Juakali garage, they are the best artisans. Yeah. Yeah. If you find them designing clothes as fundis out there, they are the best. Only that the school did not meet their learning needs.
Okay. And speaking of needs, Lena, what have you put in place to ensure that your daughter now is supported as she should be?
Like us, when we got to know, one, we accepted our daughter has dyslexia. Yeah, which is a very important fact. There are parents who are told, I'm sure he's met some, who refuse. You know, how would you refuse? Like you've been struggling and here you have a breakthrough. There's this issue. So what we have done is one, we've talked to the schools, where the school where she goes, and they've been very positive, and she gets lesser workload. Yeah, not a lot of copying, you know. Sometimes she gets different homework because at the end of the day is her understanding of a certain concept, you know. Then we make people around us, especially family and friends, to know what she's going through, because you'll find other kids telling her, you can't read, you know. So you need to protect her self-esteem at that point. And sometimes she'll come and tell you, oh, this person said, I can't read, or I'm lazy. You know, like what he's saying? Yes. Like I didn't want to do. And mommy, I was trying hard. You know how that breaks the heart of a parent. But you're thinking about a common mwananchi who is in a remote village somewhere, you know? So fast from the household, things that don't need money intervention, protect that child and their self-esteem.
I'm glad you brought up the people in the villages, the counties, mashinani. Where can somebody go to get the right intervention for their child?
We have places where you can go for basic evaluation. The government runs assessment and resource centers. So the former district, so that is the Ministry of Education started EACS, Education Assessment and Resource Center. So if you're anywhere in the country, you can go to education office in the county where you are, and they'll be able to direct you to the nearest Education Assessment and Resource Center. They'll be able to do basic evaluation. But then the problem is intervention. Where will that child be referred to? We do not have those programs. So they'll probably refer you to a school for children with intellectual disability because you're not fitting in the mainstream classroom. But then when you take this child to the other side, they're also not fitting in. They do not have intellectual disability. And they're not fitting in the mainstream, so they're left nowhere. So the parent would then decide whether to continue in the mainstream and the child continues failing, or take the child to a special school for children with intellectual disability and waste the child's potential. So that's where we are as a country, that we do not have a single program for early intervention run by the government.
Our prayer is that every government school, and you're looking at every common Kenyan, you know, that you can be able to go into a normal school, government school, and get intervention from there. And most of the international schools have support units, you know, where kids can be pulled out and put in. They'll go through the mainstream education, even in the international, but they get sessions where they can come out and, you know, they read with the teachers, they what, and there's a few interventions done there. Then again, they have audiobooks, you know. Like, for example, I'm a teenage 13-year-old girl. We are reading this novel. I won't feel left out because I can go borrow an audiobook, read, and compare with my peers who are reading the book. There's also something, tools like a C-pen, which can read for you. So if we can even have 2 minimum in every school, where when these students are when they're doing exams, the C-pen is a reader. So it reads for them. And you see, we are saying all of us, all our children, should access the same level of education. And then also just the issue about laptops in school. This is where we get to use them, you know, where kids, you know, because they can spell check, because they struggle with spelling. They can spell check. They can have programs that speak back. Like, I'm searching for this Google. Can you get it for me, you know? So that helps a child who is struggling with something, and they'll feel technology has bridged this gap, and I'm able to be at par with my fellow students.
Okay, now before we wrap up this conversation, you need to bust some myths for us in as far as dyslexia is concerned.
Right.
Some people think dyslexia is about reading things backwards. Fact or fiction?
Fiction.
Good. There is a connection between dyslexia and mental illness. Fact or fiction?
Fiction. But a person with dyslexia can develop a mental health problem because we say society is the problem. If everybody keep focusing on your negatives, then there will be a problem.
Okay, and some say it is more common in boys than it is in girls. Fact or fiction?
Apparently, yes. Boys are affected in all kinds of disabilities than in girls.
How come?
There are so many explanations. One of them is that the Y chromosome is a barren chromosome in men. So it does not carry a lot of characteristics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so even as we say goodbye, Lene, what would you like society to understand in as far as special needs children are concerned, dyslexic in this case, and their caregivers?
Support from the education, from the government, Ministry of Education, and support from home, support from teachers, yes, and love in general.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very well said. That was Lena Kivuva, caregiver to a 9-year-old living with dyslexia, and Dr. John Omonella, who is a consultant in developmental and learning disability, as we learned more about dyslexia and, of course, some of the challenges those that living with this condition go through, but most so to be aware that their caregivers also need support, and they also need to be aware of the challenges their children are going through. Well, time for the health tip.
The dumbbell and the kettlebell are great tools for strength training, but if your aim is to lose weight, you should include more of kettlebells in your workouts. Like the exercise he's doing right now, he's working on his glutes, the legs, and working on his abs. So it helps a lot in losing weight. When you're doing your back workouts, you should arch your back and make sure you're looking forward while you're working out on your back. Those are the best tips if you want to build a nice back and a full, well sculptured back. This workout is called bent over rows.
This has been Health Diary. Thank you for your company, and of course we see your suggestions and your comments coming through on our social media handles. We have been coming to you from the Gramo Suites here in Nairobi. Until next time, take care. Thank you for joining us on Health Diary, and thank you for... Hi, let's start again. Okay.